Salam to everyone. Good afternoon to those on the East Coast. Good morning to those on the West Coast. Good evening and to those in Pakistan and in Europe. Thank you for joining us. My name is Shahan. I am the Director of Events at Open Global, and I will be your moderator for today. Open stands for the Organization of Pakistani Entrepreneurs of North America and was founded in 1998. We are a truly global organization with 15 plus chapters across North America, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. Our vision is to become the most trusted and influential global network of entrepreneurs and professionals of Pakistani heritage and open for all. At Open Global, our role is to bring our powerful network of entrepreneurs, professionals, students, and thought leaders together to make an invaluable connection and bring forward ideas and problems that require solutions and provide opportunities. One of the ways we do that is through the Open Chai and Gupshup series, for which our guest speaker today is ENAAM AHMED. ENAAM AHMED is the youngest ever world and European karting champion, beating Mick Schumacher to both titles. He then won the British Formula 4 Rookie Championship at 15 years old. After that, he went to British Formula 3 and became champion with the most wins in history, 13, beating a record held by Ayrton Senna for 40 years. He is now in the Indy Next Series, which is the feeder series into America's top racing series, IndyCar and the Indy 500. Welcome, Anam. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. I'm just in Michigan right now, and I've been working, also pitching to people and stuff. So, no, very happy. And I'm with my sponsors here, Days Competition. And no, it's been really, really good. I go around America on a weekly basis.
Very cool. Thank you for taking the time. I know this is an off weekend for you, so great timing. Let's jump right into it. So what got you into car racing?
My dad took me when I was 8 years old to the local go-kart track, like in North London, and it was actually the same place that Lewis Hamilton started. So it was called Wright House, and I started driving there, and then it was never, we never anticipated to go to this high level. I never saw it as being a career. It was just me and my dad, like having like a bonding relationship. And then I just started doing the small races and then building up to it. And then when I started winning the small local races, then we just keep going, doing more things. So my dad was like, okay, let's do the county championship. Okay, then we won that. Okay, now let's do the British championship. So then when I was 12 years old, I was British champion in go-karting. And then after that, we were like, well, now we won the British championship like Hamilton did, so might as well try and win the world and European championship. So when I was 13 years old, then I left home and I moved to Italy. And then I started my career in racing in European and world championship level karting, which is the most competitive in the world. Tens of thousands of drivers, and it's very hard. And some of my teammates are now in Formula One, like Lando Norris and a few other people. Verstappen was there, Leclerc. They were in older category, but we all grew up around the same tracks, doing the same championships. And then when I was 14 years old, I was world champion, European champion in karting, Italian, and then I won both Italian championships and then Winter Cup as well against Schumacher. And then after that, because I left home when I was 13, I had to start raising money because racing costs money, right? So I had to start getting sponsors behind me. So my father could only take me to a certain level. Then he said, like, look, if this is what you want to do, you have to figure out a way to make it work. So best way to make it work, I became a very good salesman, and I had to get very good results. Two very good things. Without good results, you're not going to get sponsors. And without being a good salesman, you're not going to get sponsors either. So you got to talk the talk and walk the walk, both things. So then I got some backing. I remember when I was 15, I raised like £150,000 at the time to do British Formula 4. And then I came with no practice, no nothing, and against Lando Norris and stuff like that. And then I became rookie champion when I was 15. And then after that, I went to British Formula 3, raised the money to do that. And then I won it in my second year with 13 wins. Then after that, I went to racing.
Yeah. Okay. And when you got into racing, were there a lot of Pakistani kids or brown kids that were into racing? Were they doing that?
No, there's never been a Pakistani guy. No. There was two before me that were 10 years before me. They were like in the late 2000s, but for whatever reason, they went to a high level. There's been a lot of Indian drivers, a lot. I've raced against 15, and
Okay.
two of them have been particularly good. One's called Jahan Darawala. He was
Yeah.
backed by Vijay Mallya when the Force India
Okay.
thing was happening.
Yeah.
So actually, that was a funny story. So when I was racing World European Championship level karting, Jahan came over from India, and we were both in the same team. And this is when Vijay Mallya and Force India was big. And I remember Vijay Mallya did this hunt, 1 from 1 billion. So they went across all of India to find India's best racing driver, fully paid for. So Jahan was the best one. He won. It took like years, and he was like considered the best one. And they funded him to come to Europe to race against us, and then all the way now to Formula 2. He's in Formula 2 right now in Europe, and we've been actually very good friends for a long
Oh,
time.
very cool. Very cool. And what did your family think about you? So you mentioned that at 13, your dad was like, now you've got to kind of you first of all, you left home is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of so what did your family think about your decision to race? It seems like they were supportive, but they said you've got to kind of make this on your own, son. Is that kind of
Yeah, my dad's always been of the philosophy you got to stand on your own 2 feet, So, and I think it's the best thing that ever happened to me because, when I compare that to also kids that have things in life too easy, you get distracted and get into a lot of other problems, whether it be drugs, alcohol, parties, and all that stuff. My dad was very hard on me, and he never gave me anything for free. You know what I mean? So he was like, "Look, if this is what you want to do, you have to prove yourself," and that's what made me the driver I am because I push it so damn hard and I want it so much. And I don't let anything stand in my way, even since I was a kid. That's why I always wanted to dominate and obliterate the entire competition every time I drive. Always been like that, especially being Desi, being South Asian. We have to be better than everyone else because the problem is, even if you finish top 3, no one really wants to support a guy like us. They always want to support someone not like us. So you have to prove that you're that much better, and you have to really destroy them. So that's why if you look at my history, everything I've won has not just been by a bit. I've absolutely obliterated everyone I've gone against. Completely, and it has to be like that.
So just for some of the kids that will listen to these recordings, how did you know that this is for you? Like I get it that you started small and you kept building. So how did you know, that this is what you want to do for the rest of your life? How did you come to that conclusion?
So it's the only thing I loved and the only thing I was good at. I was not good at anything else, not any other sport or anything like that. And I just dedicated my life to it. I didn't know if it's going to work out. I've always found in life, you don't know if it's going to work out, but winners never quit and quitters never win. You got to keep trying. And I've had many more failures than I've had successes. Like even coming to America was very hard for me. I left back a stable career in Japan to come and take a risk to come win Indy 500. And it's still nothing set in stone for me. So I've always been a risk taker, and I've always been willing to lose it all. And a man that's willing to lose it all is also a dangerous man. And that's why when I'm on track, I push like hell because I've always believed I have nothing to lose. And when you think like that, I don't believe anything can get in your way.
Where do you get that strength from and the drive from? Because you have this drive, right? I mean, I can tell by the way you're talking, right? At 13, you left home, a 13-year-old kid, raising money on his own, driving at the same time, like pushing himself, and like in any racing series, right? You have wins, you have losses. So who do you credit your drive to, and where do you think it comes from?
Well, leaving your parents behind at 13, being by yourself, for example, here, like I have a second family in America. My sponsor today is like Fairs and his family. They basically look after me like I'm their son. I'm very lucky like that. I met very good people along the way. If I'll tell you my whole life story, the people I've met along the way, it's been amazing. But it comes from my parents because look, my parents didn't go to school, right? So both mum and dad, and they both had to set up successful businesses. So they were both in the fashion industry. My mum, by the time, because both my parents' fathers died at young ages. I never met both grandfathers. So both my parents had to kind of take the role of being the head of their family. So my mum, by the time she was 18, 19, she worked her way up in the fashion industry. And then she was managing the whole of Harvey Nichols, which was one of the top, at the time in the 70s and 80s, it was one of the top department stores in London next to Harrods. Then after that, she was headhunted by Donna Karan to open all the DKNY stores in London. So everything in Bond Street, everything you see to do with fashion with Donna Karan, that's all my mother. Then my father He didn't go to school, but they were always hustlers. So my dad and his dad, they set up a wholesaling business. And then after that, my dad set up a fashion brand called Joe Bloggs, which was jeans. And in the 80s, it was the biggest in the UK. It was a main competitor to Levi's. So every kid that was a teenager was wearing my dad's baggy jeans. So that, and then that's how they met. And then I came along, but that's not another story. But they both came from nothing, and they both came from not an educational background. But my dad always told me common sense is not common, and you can't educate that. So that's what I've always taken into my head. Tenacity is the most important thing. Not giving up, working hard. That's like should be basic, in my opinion. Like when you hear people like, oh yeah, never give up, all that. And that's like basic. That's like 10-20% of how to, in my opinion, in sport to get to the top. The rest, in my opinion, is how tenacious, determined, my desire, my determination. And then so desire and determination is the most important thing, because that's what pushes you through all the hard times and the fire in your stomach. And tenacity. Some people that I've met, and Amreen would have known, but like I'm very tenacious and I'm very cheeky. I like being on the move. I like being a salesman. I like being an entrepreneur in a way. And I over time I grew to get like a charm almost, because you have to be at a high level to meet the wonderful people I've met along the way that have supported me. You have to have something about you, and that's something that you learn by putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, which is what I thrive on.
Again, a very basic question, but what advice would you give to a young Pakistani who wants to get into racing, or a Pakistani parent whose child wants to, because this is not a traditional career for a Pakistani, right? I mean, lawyers, doctors, entrepreneurs, like so what advice would you give?
Be prepared to suffer a lot.
Okay.
A lot. You're gonna fall more than you're gonna succeed. Be prepared for the family to suffer a lot. Kids going to be away from home. And I see a lot of people, not just Pakistani people, but like people like even when they get into sport or motorsport, doesn't matter. Like they go through a few hard times and then they like, oh, maybe it's not for me. I went through hundreds of thousands of failures, of getting crashed, hurting myself, not succeeding at all. Like when I talk about my career, I talk about the success, but that's only like 3% of it. The rest of it was hell. Like I used to get beaten up. I got beaten up for being a Pakistani when I was 11 years old in a go-kart track by some white skinheads. You know what I mean? Like all these things that happen, and you got to be prepared to suffer and to keep suffering. And you don't know if you're going to make it. I still don't know if I'm going to make it, but because I learned to enjoy suffering and to push forward, I leave the rest into the hands of my Kismet and God. But that's all I will say. Don't expect things to be sunshine and rainbows at all. But if you learn to enjoy that, enjoy the journey, the destination will come anyway.
That's some tough stuff to go through.
Yeah.
I mean, what you just said is that's a whole different conversation. We could probably spend an hour on that. So we spoke about you becoming Formula 3 champion, and then from there you mentioned that you did not go into F2, but you moved to Japan, right? And now you're in the States. So maybe you can take us through that journey a little bit. So from F3 champion, you're moving to Japan and then to the US. What was that about, and how's that going?
So the problem with racing, especially in Europe, it's very money orientated, right? Even if you're champion, you still need to bring money behind you. Until you get to Formula One or IndyCar, the drivers don't get paid, right? The driver has to bring a sponsor or it's family money. So even though I was Formula 3 champion, I didn't have the funding at the time. I couldn't raise enough sponsorship to go to Formula 2. Formula 2 at the time was like 3.5 to 4 million euros. And for an 18, 19-year-old kid, it's very hard to raise 4 million euros, So unfortunately, I didn't get my chance to go to Formula 2, even though I was British Formula 3 champion.
So one thing. So it's 3.5, 4 million on top of whatever the team is going to spend on the car. Is that
exactly?
Yeah.
That also helps the team fund it. But that's usually how it works in Europe, And then the better the team, the more expensive it is usually, because they can charge that. Because the problem is there's a lot of drivers who have wealthy families as well. So the families are willing to spend that. Believe it or not, the families are willing to spend, even if their kid's not very good. But so then I was left with no option. So then I remember I got a call from a friend of mine. Is that, look, there's an opportunity in Japan. You become a professional driver, paid, everything like that. Just go. And then I remember the next day, packed a tiny suitcase, eyes closed, took a plane, 18 years old, straight to Japan, and then lived there for like a year and a half, and then never looked back. And then when I went to Japan, didn't have a home or anything like that. I was like living in the team's garage and workshop, making it work. I picked up Japanese because no one speaks English and Japanese. So the only way to communicate to win races was to learn Japanese. So I learned more Japanese than I do Urdu. I know more Japanese than I do Urdu. So I was able to communicate fully in Japanese. And I won many races in Japan. I finished top 3 in the championship. And it was a very, very great experience. But I always like to do things the best in life. And I like to take risks. I felt like I was getting too comfortable in Japan. I could have had a great career for 10, 15, 20 years, getting paid good money and racing for Toyota, Honda, and Nissan. But I was like, you know what? I didn't start this sport and won what I've won to just settle over there. No disrespect, but just to settle over there. I want to race at the top. The 2 top racing series in the world, Formula One and IndyCar. IndyCar's US. IndyCar was just starting to get big again because a lot of ex-Formula One drivers have been coming to IndyCar lately, and the series has grown a lot. So I took the risk. I left my job, everything in Japan, and then I came to US with nothing. And then I remember I came in 2021, was in and out of drives, doing a race here and there. And then I got one chance at the end of 2021 by an American team. They'd be like, look, our driver got sacked. You do the last race. And I hadn't driven in a year and a half. I didn't know the track, nothing. If you do a good job, great. Luckily, it rained and I obliterated everyone. Whenever it rains, I'm very good. So I've never lost most of the time when it's wet. So we went to Mid-Ohio, and then I qualified on the front row and led the whole race. And then that's how got me the drive to race last year in 2022. And then came top 3 in the championship and a lot of podiums. And then now I'm in Indy Next, which is the Formula 2 of America. So Indy Next is the Formula 2 for IndyCar. It's the second level. It's just a little bit slower. The cars are very fast. All the races are on Peacock TV. Everything is live, and it's a big championship. And my goal, inshallah, is to win Indy Next in the near future and to go to IndyCar and be the first Pakistani to win the Indianapolis 500, basically.
Okay. So the Indianapolis 500 is part of the IndyCar series, right?
Yes, it's the biggest race in the IndyCar series.
So this season, I think I read you were 3rd place in compared when your teammate was 17, something of that sort. Can you talk about this?
I was 4th. Sorry, I was 4th. So I'm in a new team this year. So they did a very good job. Cape Motorsport. We came with no information, no data. They're a small team, and it's always been like that. I've always been a David and Goliath story. I don't get given a chance in a top team straight away. But when I prove myself, then I get a chance the following year. So I went with a new team called Cape. They signed me up. And to give you an idea, we're going against teams like Andretti Autosport and HMD. I think Andretti Autosport is nearly $1 billion company. But like they have huge budgets, Andretti. And we're going against them, and I'm beating most of their cars. And we're doing it on like not even a fraction, like less than a quarter of what they're spending. And it's quite a funny story because, we go to every track. We don't have any data, no knowledge, no nothing. It's the first time we're running these cars. We don't know the performance window, the center of pressure, aerodynamic window, nothing. We have to start from scratch. That's why sometimes we're really good if we get it right, or we can be really bad. Racing's like that, just like Formula One. If you're not in a good car all the time, you see Red Bull's just consistently dominating. Mercedes cars very up and down. Sometimes Lewis and George do a really good job. Next weekend they're terrible and they don't know why. It's the same thing in American racing. And but inshallah, I'm hoping to do a good job this year and to go to win the championship next year with whichever team I choose.
And one thing I didn't ask you is you don't come from a background where they know about cars, right? You didn't go to shop school, but as a driver, my understanding is you need to have intimate knowledge about the car you're driving, right? Yeah. And you yourself said you basically lived in the garage. So how did that happen? How did you get that technical knowledge?
Well, it's just like everything. I mean, with any business, if you don't know anything about your own business, you're not going to be a good businessman, are you? So my business is racing. My business is cars, understanding how to get these cars to perform at their best, and myself, 70-80% is the driver, but the machinery is man and machine. So it's both. It's just a lot of knowledge, like building that knowledge. I have a book that I've been writing probably since I was 14 years old. That is still the same book. I have it in my backpack actually next to me, which is usually behind my laptop. Everything I've ever learned has been written down in that book. from every single track, everywhere in the world. I pull up that book and I can still have my notes when I'm 14 years old. Okay, Sarno in Italy, Naples, turn 4. It was better to turn it in earlier, hit the curb here. Oh, we use a 32-inch gearing. All these things. I have it all written down. So knowledge is key. And that's priceless. That's like a price within itself. So for example, when people pay me to coach them, I'm considered an expensive coach because at the end of the day, you're paying for my knowledge. I had to invest. My father had to invest in me in the early part of my career. I had to get these sponsors to invest into me, and that knowledge has a price within itself. So every track from every car, every go-kart, everything I've ever driven has been written down, and I look back on it whenever I need to.
Beautiful. And you mentioned that, historically, you never start off with one of the best cars, but you overperform, and then you get a chance to go into a nicer car. So now you've been with Indy Next, right?
Yeah.
So you're doing well. You're not with one of the best. I mean, what's next for ENAAM in Indy Next?
So I have a few potentials with other teams as well for next year. I'm not gonna lie about that. My goal next year is to go to win the title. And there's never been a Pakistani that's won a major title in motorsport in the US. And to do that, you need to have the best car as well. It's motorsport. It's not a joke. So I'm looking at my options. Inshallah, that should be something that's going to be done within the next couple of months. And then let's see. And then that, if I win the championship next year, that'll catapult me into IndyCar, and it's a big prize money pool.
So what stands in your way and the opportunity to win the Indy Next series? What are your challenges that you feel that are in your way?
So right now it's just we don't have any knowledge, because usually when you go to a team that has a lot of experience, that has won the championship many times, they have a database of 10 or 20 years. So every time they go to a track, they know exactly what to set up on the car and what spring rate, anti-roll bar rate, everything. And with my team, we're starting from scratch every time we go to every track. And the problem is, in this high level, you don't get much practice. You get one practice session, 20 minutes, straight to qualifying, straight into race. So if you don't roll the car off the trailer and it's good, you're going to have a very hard weekend. So that's usually the issue. And I had to go with a team that was new, because at the time, I had a sponsor, which at the time pulled out at the time last year. So then I was left in a tricky situation. I had to raise a different amount of money quickly. And then this team was willing to contribute, and they gave me a sponsor. So it worked hand in hand. They had a team sponsor that wanted a good driver. So they invested into me basically. And basically, because they're a new team, they needed a driver that had won and had experience to teach, to show them the direction to go, basically. So that's where I came in.
So anyone that's going to listen into this recording or is watching today or is going to watch this, maybe a few days from now, and they say, you know what, we really like ENAAM and we want to be part of his story, right? Because how do they become part of your story? Like, what do they need, or what can they do for you, or what can we do for you? What in your mind?
First of all, the most important thing is what I can do for them, because it's a business transaction. Whenever I pitch someone, I don't pitch them unless I can think about how it benefits them. If I don't think a way it can benefit them, I don't even bother, because it's not a charity. It's just business. It's America. It's capitalism. It's not. You don't just give money. There's no such thing as free money. So that's a long-winded conversation, which I'd have to study. And every time I pitch to someone, it's completely different. But Amreen, she knows how. I usually speak to Amreen a lot about who to connect with, and she helps me. So everyone would have to go through her. But yes, I mean, I have sponsorship packages. In Peacock TV, IndyCar and Indy Next got 60 million avid viewers. Indy 500 is one of the biggest sporting events in the world, one of the biggest in America than the Super Bowl. Our races are shown all across the world, not just America. Sky Sports in the UK, all across Europe, beIN Sports in the Middle East. Now they're going to be shown in Pakistan. I'm working on that. And the Geo has full coverage of me. Every time I race, Geo's covering me fully. And my job is to catapult that person's brand or company into whatever stratosphere that they want. So, for example, whether it's bumping up share price, whatever, I think of every angle and I figure out a way to do it. Hospitality, like for example, some of my sponsors, they like more the hospitality side. So when they take their executives out, we get a suite in Indianapolis to watch the race and make it like more of a show. So there's many different avenues. And also what I do, for example, like one of my sponsors, Ship Sigma, logistics company, how I got the deal with them is that I found them customers. And through that, that's how my sponsorship increased, basically. So, there's many angles that I look at. I'm an entrepreneur like everyone else here. So that's what I have to do. Yes, I mean, being all my sponsors that are behind me now, they're behind me because they see the vision. Because at the end of the day, I'm a proven product. You're not investing to someone that is starting from zero. I'm a world champion, European champion, Formula 3, Formula 4 champion. I've proved I can be with the best, and I've raced the best. So it's about the people I'm putting together a portfolio of brands behind me that is going to be catapulted with me to the very top. It's not just IndyCar. The long-term goal is to go to Formula 1 as well. And I want to be the first Pakistani world champion at the end of the day. That's why I'm here. So, and I've gotten this far, and I'm just on the cusp. IndyCar and Formula 1 is just literally in touching distance now. And inshallah, I'm putting together everyone so I can get that push, that political push. Because the more brands, the more money you've got behind you, the easier it is to get into these places.
Unless you want to say anything else that we missed out on, I'd like to open it up to questions now.
Yeah, sure.
So if you had the option to move to Formula 1, would you do it?
Yes, I would. But I would only want to do it if we're coming from a position of power. Because you don't want to go into Formula 1 and end up going in a bad team and having to bring a lot of money. So, for example, the reason why I'm going through the path in America is because I like to go through, be a champion in Indy next, be a champion in IndyCar. Then I have a very high reputation and a lot of, you can say hype around me. So then rather than going to sounds bad, but rather than going to like a Williams or like a Haas, you can go straight to like a McLaren or a Ferrari team. Because in F1, you only get one chance, and you don't want to rush your fences and go when you're not going to be presented with a good opportunity. Because if you're going to finish at the back, no one ever is really going to take you. So it's better to build your brand value and to win in IndyCar, and then when the opportunity presents itself, then to go to Formula 1 and to go to try and win. Racing is all about winning and being at the front. So you got to be right place, right time. That's the most important thing.
So amazing. So how do you keep up? You have spoken to me on so many subjects. I find you very kind of aware, very well read, and you certainly come off that way. What do you do as far as learning besides the car stuff that you talked about?
So usually my father always taught me that, stick to what you know and what you do best. So I've been around the motorsport industry and the car industry my whole life. So I've just been pre-approved to get a golden residency in Dubai. So I'm opening a racing team of my own, actually in Dubai, mainly to look after younger drivers between the ages of 8 and 14 years old. That's something that so basically all my businesses I kind of set up around cars. Also, what I did to fund my racing is I used to be able to I used to be the middleman to source high-end hypercars. So cars that were off market, let's say someone wanted a particular white LaFerrari Aperta, for example, I'd be able to source that before it ever went on the market. So I usually dabble in a few little things. But my priority focus is racing, because the racing springboards everything else. Because without the results, without the racing, my brand value, everything is not as valuable as it could be. So 90% of my focus is on the racing, 95% of the focus on the racing. The other 5% is on means to do businesses on the side. But the main thing, the racing dictates everything else, because that's what's put me into this opportunity.
He's got quite a fan following also on social media, so you can share your social media handles as well. And actually, we can also share your social media handles too. I have a question for you, ENAAM. Clearly, you're having a great time racing, but what do you like to do to distract yourself? What do you do for fun?
I don't distract myself.
There we go.
Hi, I would like to chime in. My name is Faisal Ahmed. I've had the pleasure of knowing ENAAM here for quite some time.
One of my sponsors.
I'm new to this group, but he showed me the posts, and it's very interesting to me as a Pakistani entrepreneur myself. But we can talk about that later. But I do want to say one thing. I think he's been downplaying, he's being a little bit modest on his work ethic, and I'll tell you, as a businessman and also as a team owner in racing, we get pitched by a lot of drivers, and we got a lot of young kids coming through. And what was most impressive for us with ENAAM was his drive, right, and his work ethic, and seeing at the age that he is, the grind he's putting through. It's easy for him to say that he works hard, but I've seen it, and in terms of taking care of himself and being focused and not getting distracted by all the glitz and glamour that come along with his lifestyle. And seeing him stay grounded is key. And in terms of his fitness and all that, I think it's again downplayed a lot what the kind of strength and endurance training that's required for what he does. I mean, to the point where we have to, on a race weekend, we have his hydration plan is down to the minute. You know, at this time you'll drink this many ounces of this liquid, and at this time you'll be performing in this point in the car. So there's a lot that running around behind this, and I just would say that I haven't yet met a young man with this drive. So that's kind of why we've gotten behind him.
Thank you, Faisal.
Perfect. And with that, we'll thank everyone. Thanks, ENAAM, and thank you, Amreen. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and have a great rest of the Sunday.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. See you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.